Welcome to episode 234 of the Grip Strip podcast, the Flipping the Script episode of the GSP. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and Jacksonville Jaguars diehard fan, Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, always glad to be back on for another show. Of course, was at Daytona for Cup and Xfinity, so got to see both races and everything. And yeah, definitely saw a lot that happened there. So yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go and talk about what you saw, what you experienced at Daytona, seeing Chase Briscoe's pasty legs up close and personal, amongst other things, including Harrison Burton giving the Wood brothers their 100th win in their illustrious history, and going from 34th in points, the last regular in points, and of course being fired, to in the playoffs. Talking about all that comes with that, and how it screws up the likes of Christopher Buescher, Darrell Walsh Jr., and Ross Chastain. We'll talk about the flipping of multiple cars because it happened at Michigan previous week for LaJoie after, Post getting fired himself. Then you have multiple flips that took place in airborne cars in the Coke Zero 400. Most notably, Josh Berry, after a really good run, had a stage win, and then ended up on his lid and flipped over and hit the wall, and so that was disappointing for him. But it seems to be a thing now with this car. All these years they said that they had restrictor plates. They said that was a temporary solution. They still have tapered spacers, and they can't keep cars on the ground. And this is going all the way back to 1987, when they said the cars were too fast and they were taking off. Now they restrict them, they still take off. So we'll get into all that. We'll talk about the points. We'll go into Ryan Truex Jr. getting his second Xfinity win of 2024 at Daytona in the Wawa 250. And so it makes sense. A Jersey boy goes and wins the Wawa race. We'll get in a whole race there. Points. Lane Riggs getting a win in front of about 500 people at the Milwaukee Mile yesterday afternoon. Gets his first career truck win. His dad was there, so it was cool to see. Lane Riggs basically has no neck and short arms, and then dislocated his shoulder in the celebration, which was crazy. Front Row Motorsports and Riggs did not make the playoffs, but they go and take away a guaranteed spot, at least one race of a guaranteed spot away in their first race of the playoffs. They will not be going back there next year. After two races, they're coming back, so we'll see what happens with that. We'll get into the key players in terms of the playoffs and whatever else going on. IndyCar, the last two races has been Gateway and Portland. And wouldn't you know, the guy who owns the series owns the cars the last two winners. Newgarden, after controversy late in that race, goes and gets the win there at Gateway. And then Winch Power, after flipping off Joseph Newgarden, goes and at Gateway goes and wins at Portland with relative ease. Root Beer Floathead actually qualified on pole in a Penske affiliate car there at Portland. Lando Norris gets his second career Formula One win, even with him fucking up another start, because that seems to be his thing. He beats his butt buddy Fish Lips, who doesn't seem as invincible as he has been for the past 3 years or so. Or when Lewis Hamilton's anywhere around him. But yeah, Lando basically beat him fair and square there. And after that, after those two guys, it's interesting dynamics there. We also have the notion of Logan Sargent's terrible Formula One career probably being over, if not this weekend, by, I guess, Singapore or whatever the hell the next race is after Monza. So yet another American driver goes to Formula One, fails miserably, and it's probably going to take another 15, 20 years to get another American in Formula One, unless Colton Herta somehow or another gets enough points and Michael Andretti gets a team. The roundup, we'll talk about F1 Academy, F2 and F3, IMSA and World Endurance Championship, Indy next, MotoGP, Moto2, and of course the big go, the NHRA US Nationals. We'll preview the Italian Grand Prix for Formula One. Milwaukee Mile will hold an IndyCar double header this weekend. I'm not sure why they didn't just have it all together on one weekend. That might have been a more logical scheduling situation there. But we know NASCAR and IndyCar don't seem to work together very well, so that kind of makes sense. And then Cup and Xfinity at Darlington, the Southern 500, and who will make the playoffs. Josh will let us know all things going on in iRacing Gaming in a sim segment. We'll call it a day. So let us move forward there and start with the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona, which saw Harrison Burton go and become a first-time winner at Daytona. Gets the Wood Brothers their 100th victory in their long and historic existence. It's been since 2017 when Ryan Blaney won at Pocono. I was there for that race. It was epic. Beat Kyle Busch that day. Bubba actually debuted that day too. It's been since then. It's been 2017, so 7 years plus since that victory. Harrison Burton, of course, as I mentioned earlier, has been fired and doesn't have anything as of now. Probably will go back to Gibbs or something the way things are going. Either that or go to JRM with the money that he has. But either way, Harrison Burton, his dad celebrates in the booth. His mom, of course, starts crying because that's what she does. His girlfriend freaks out too, and she had some great pants on. I gotta say, those are some nice pants that she was wearing. And I'm Harrison had a nice grip on her too. So that was, I gotta say, for a guy who looks like he's 12 years old, he got a good grip on her. But I don't know if he gave a better hug to her, if he gave a better hug to his dad, which is whatever. But, either way, Harrison Burton, big deal for him, gets the 21 into the playoffs. So they go from 34th to 16th in the span of a half a lap. Kyle Busch left to wonder yet again, having a must-win scenario at Darlington, basically outside of three guys, points-wise, everybody behind Buescher, Bubba, and Chastain. Every one of them has to win. Kyle Busch had a chance there to get his first win at Daytona in a Cup car since 2008. Fell short. Christopher Bell comes home third. Cody Ware gets his career best finish in fourth. And Keebler Gibbs finished fifth. Darrell Wallace Jr. finished 6th. Paperboy Parker Retzlaff gave Harrison Burton the push. So shout out to one of your guys, Josh, in terms of coming from the sim and showing his abilities out there. Took that Beard Motorsports car as close to a victory as they've had since Brendan Gaughan ended up on his lid at Talladega a few years ago. Brad Keselowski, Daniel Hemrick, Christopher Buescher rounds out your top 10. There were 20 cars on the lead lap. The last 2 were BJ McLeod and Joey Gase. Yeah, I mean, he led 1 lap. He led the most important lap. He led half a lap, and he led the most important half lap of the race. And I mean, you gotta just say credit to Harrison Burton. He was nowhere near the front, didn't get stage points, avoided any number of incidents that took place. There were, what was it, 2 major wrecks early, one in lap 61 and then lap 153. He was able to avoid those and keep a functional car. And, you got to take your hat off to him. He goes and gets the job done at Daytona, Josh, at a place where the Wood brothers have been great for many years and found weird ways to win recently, whether it's Trevor Bayne in 2011 with the tandems, or Harrison Burton, who doesn't have a job next year, going and beating Kyle Busch for his first career win in his 98th start.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for Harrison Burton, first of all, I really have to give him credit there because, I mean, at least, like 2 weeks ago, he got it done cleanly, right? I mean, this is the same exact situation as Austin Dillon winning at Richmond, but, without intentionally wrecking and stuff. I mean, this is probably the biggest playoff upset of all time in terms of points because not only is he 34th in points, but he's so far behind. He's hundreds of points behind, even like 30th. So there's even like winning this race on points doesn't even get him out of 30th like it did for Austin Dillon. So there's that, and of course he's several races behind Tyler Reddick in the regular standings, and so yeah, this is a huge get for him. And of course, for the team, they'll get an extra couple of $1 million, I think, according to what Denny Hamlin and others have said regarding the points payouts for being in the playoffs versus finishing likely in the 30s like they probably would otherwise. So yeah, this is a huge win for that team, and of course the 100th win for one of the historic teams in NASCAR that won a lot back in the day, but hasn't really had too many wins to have in the since the 90s and the 2000s. So yeah, very, very big win here. Of course, Penske Power as well with the partnership there. So yeah, a lot of things to feel good about it. Of course, other than the fact that he's 16th or the 34th driver in points and does continues to make the playoff system look like a joke. But at least even if you're a Bubba Wallace fan, we saw a couple Bubba Wallace fans on Twitter, of course, saying of course it's hard to feel not happy about the situation just because for all the stuff that Harrison Burton has been through throughout his career in Cups. So yeah, he's been good on restrictor or super speedway racing, of course. Has been running up front or relatively up front, top 10, that sort of deal. So at least there's that. But I mean, for me, it was a good race throughout. There's definitely a lot of action that happened. Was hoping to see a green flag pit stop there towards the end, but we never got that. but at least saw a lot of passing up front, a lot of aggressive blocking, of course, and of course all the wrecks that we saw. But gotta say for Parker Retzlaff, I mean, what a pushing Harrison by Kyle Busch there. Of course, not the situation that team probably wanted to be in, because Beard Motorsports, they're an affiliate, or at least they're in partnership with RCR there, and I think the spotter was telling them to whatever you do, don't push the Ford to the win or whatever. But it's hard to not push him there, because of course that's where all the energy was coming from, and just based on the line that you're in, you just got to take the momentum and go with it, of course. But of course he kind of got shuffled back there after pushing him back to seventh there at the line. So for Parker, I mean, that's a good run. Of course, probably didn't even have to run Richmond or anything like that to get clearance for this race, but good experience there for him to run well, especially in that 62 car there, running well, showing what they can do once again on super speedways. But I think the other thing there is Kyle Busch, because definitely had opportunity to win, had a big lead going through turn 1 and 2 there, and probably opened himself up to being vulnerable in the lead. So it's hard, especially with this car with how drag it is. It's definitely hard to stay up front, especially at the end. So for him, it's another race that he lost, and definitely now is very likely probably to miss the playoffs unless they hit on something real good here at Darlington. So looking like a lost season, and if it already was for Kyle Busch. So this probably was his last real opportunity to get a win, but at least credit to him for not cleaning out Harrison Burton there in the tri oval when Burton went down the block there in the dog leg there, and they both raced each other clean, and you can hear on the audio, of Busch's onboard. He lifted there when Harrison went to block, and then didn't go out there and clean him out. So credit for Kyle Busch for racing clean. So that's one way to do it, unlike his teammate there a couple weeks ago. So yeah, I mean, like I said, in training race, and I got to hang out with Joe. Joe came as well to the race with his dad, so they were there, and we talked about it on the walk back to the parking lots and all that stuff. So it was definitely had a good time, and probably be sharing a lot of pictures that I took with my camera there. So got some pretty good photos there, and I have to show it to you later.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, got the preview with Chase's appearance there. Saw a guy who had a Chris Buescher. You said it was a Chris Buescher car, and Briscoe Wonder Bread car, Old Spice car there. So
yeah, Buescher was after there.
Yeah. So it was good to see that picture, and I'm sure you got plenty of good stuff, you and Joe, because you both have the good equipment. So looking forward to that. I mean, we look at that and the farcical system. I mean, Dylan, we talked about it and how pathetic he is. They had a final appeal, and it was denied. Brandon Benash's spotter only got a 1-race suspension. So I think, he was out last week. He was out for Michigan. So then he was back at Daytona. But Dylan at least now won't be in the playoff unless he goes and pulls off a miracle at Darlington, which is not as far-fetched as it may seem for either of those guys, since the Olympic break has somehow or another found RCR like 3/10 or something. I don't know. I want somebody a legitimate to inspect those cars and tell me that there isn't something going on, because they've been god awful for over a year, and in a span of 2 weeks, during an Olympic break randomly. They come from being no man's land and just absolute trash to contending for wins every week, which they have ever since the Olympic break ended. Whether it's Dylan having a rocket that made him look like he was Dale Earnhardt, Kyle Busch at Michigan, and then Kyle Busch yesterday, this past weekend at Daytona, which, to be fair, RCR always seems to put their best foot forward at Daytona and Talladega over decades. But he's been in position to win. I don't know how many plate races. He won Talladega last year in the spring, but he had a chance to win the Daytona 500 in 23. He had a chance to win this race, so it's curious though. But one thing that isn't curious is the amount of flipping that's been going on, and it throws back to Tyler Reddick's victory at Michigan, because prior to Tyler Reddick going and beating Larson and putting himself smack dab in the mix for the regular season title, is Corey LaJoie stacking pennies and flipping over on his head at Michigan randomly. And then on Saturday night, you had Michael McDowell getting doored and flipping over. You had Josh Berry, after a very solid run all night, ending up on his lid a year after Ryan Preece flipped all the way down the backstretch. So I guess it's probably a good thing Stewart Haas Racing isn't going to be. They seem to destroy race cars at Daytona in big ways. So Barry was okay, but you said also, Josh, that Eric Jones, we talked about it prior to the show. He went and took off. And I said this, and it's something that's interesting. I was a very little kid when the days of non-restricted engines ended and they decided to put restrictor plates on back in 1987, and they said that was a temporary fix. And now we're in 37 years later, and we still have the same problem with the cars. No matter how many generations of cars, how many different changes, aero, this, that, and the other, downforce, having a floor and a diffuser, whatever, versus what they've had for forever, having a flat bottom. I of course defer to you as the computer guy, the genius guy. I'm just the racing fan. 37 years and all these people who are engineers and all this stuff, and we have cars flying around still. And in some ways, it might be easier for them to take off than cars from yesteryear. But I'm curious as to what you think about that.
Yeah. I kind of go with what Dale Jr. was talking about last week on his show when they were talking about the Corey LaJoie flip and saying, cars are going to go fast and they're going to flip when they get spun around like that, no matter how hard you try. And I think, I kind of agree with that, but I think, the other thing is that you got to eliminate the occurrence or the likelihood that it could happen. Because I think, there's still the possibility of it happening. We've seen it in other series that in the right conditions, the car can take off and go in the air. Although we haven't really seen where they just lifted right off of the ground. But, it seems like for whatever reason, like NASCAR in general, because it's not just the stock car, but look at what happened to Xfinity in Michigan. Car flipped over and took off. And we've seen in some Xfinity wrecks where car took off in the air. whether it was through impact or going, getting spun around. So there's still incidences of it happening, and I think it's probably because of how packed up they are and the amount of momentum and energy they are in a pack. But to go into kind of the aero side, I guess they need to. One, I guess, is the underbody like a good way to go, and then the other thing is kind of how some parts of it are designed, because if you look at like the front panel, or not the front panel, but like behind the front wheels, you can kind of see where the rocker panel, I guess, kind of curves inwards behind the front tire, and then I think it flares back in before the rear tires, I think, or something like that. And so maybe there's like when it gets under or gets backwards or gets sideways, I guess that design maybe gives it more likelihood to get turned around or generate lift up into the air. So I guess that's one thing to look at there for the next gen. But we've seen in Gen 6, there's been plenty of, it took a few years for them to, in Gen 6, for them to actually get a car to get around backwards and blow over, because I feel like we didn't really see it in Gen 6 until a few years into it. Because remember, there was Matt Kenseth at Talladega in 2016 where he kind of got sideways, kind of similar to Josh Berry, and turned over and went backwards into the wall, so or upside down into the wall. So that's kind of a similar situation, I think, there, which that was back in 2016 with the Gen 6, of course. And we've seen Kyle Larson at Talladega turn around and go into the wall there as well. So that's a couple of examples of where. Wait, go ahead.
Newman.
Oh yeah, Newman.
Daytona in the 500.
Yeah, but that one was on impact though. That one, I think not a complete blowover like some of those ones were. So yeah. I think that's like I said when we were talking offline, I think that's a different category when a car makes impact and then catches air, because now that's kind of more of a weight shift change, and that then that gives, with the amount of speed that they're having, and you have weight shift change based on impact or other things, then that gives a chance to catch air. And that's kind of like what happened to Eric Jones, is I think somebody ran into the back of him or something and he caught air because of that. So which I think is different, but still definitely could be addressed. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't address it, but definitely different category there. But in like in Xfinity last week, we saw that blow over, and we've seen it in that series too, and everything. So, and back to even the COT, Ryan Newman at Talladega 2009 got turned around and got in the air. Carl Edwards, before he got hit by Ryan Newman in 2009 at Talladega, was starting to catch air. So, and we saw Brad Keselowski at Atlanta a year later in 2010. So it's not just the Gen 6 or the next gen, but it seems like, I guess, the way that they're flipping when car gets sideways at a certain angle, that at the speeds that they're running at Daytona, Talladega, Michigan, possibly maybe other places, they catch air. So and possibly blow over. So there's something to look at, I guess, here. But I was telling you about, I saw his Reddit post online, and it seems like the guy here says the next gen car stays lower to the ground overall, especially on the rear, but in comparison, an Xfinity car, when it blows over, it goes more vertical. And we've seen the last year, Ryan Preece kind of flipped over on its side. Josh Berry kind of flipped over on its side. Harrison Burton, 2022 Daytona 500, blew over onto its side. And then this guy also shows examples of Xfinity blowing over at Michigan with Kyle Sieg there, and he, I guess his car was more angled up, where it was, the rear was pointing more towards the sky, I guess, and seeing like Myatt Snyder blowing over last lap of Xfinity a couple of years ago. Similar kind of where the rear was pointing up in the sky. Brett Moffitt a couple of years ago, again, rear pointing towards the sky. So it seems like the next gen blows over differently than the Xfinity car. So still violent because the car is super rigid, but at least it seems like it has a different characteristic when it happens. So I guess that's a interesting situation there, and it seems like there's a chance for liftoff. This guy says there's a chance for liftoff every time a car bounces. So there's been plenty of opportunities at Talladega for a blowover, but it hasn't happened yet because that surface I think is a lot smoother than Daytona. Daytona is bumpier, even though it was repaved sooner than Talladega. Talladega was repaved in 2006, and Daytona repaved in 2011. So that's definitely part of it. I think there's a lot of factors in cars blowing over. So definitely, I think NASCAR has to continue to investigate it and everything. So we'll see what happens. But I think I'll end it with this. If you remember the IR05 Indycar, remember that car had ability, like kind of had a concern of how it would blow over when it got backwards. Because remember, we saw AJ Foyt the fourth, I guess. Well, I don't think you might have seen it. I don't remember seeing it, but I've seen on YouTube him blowing over at the Indianapolis 500 qualifying. Mario Andretti blew over in testing, which that's a well-known story, in 2003 or 2004. Dario Franchitti blew over, which I remember seeing that at Michigan in 2007, amongst other things. So, obviously the reason why I bring that up is because Dallara was the manufacturer for the IR05, and I think, they're one of the main components on the next gen. So definitely I think there's something to be considered there with the manufacturer and, who designs or makes all the designs. So definitely I think there's some connection to be made there. So well, hopefully they figure it out. But it's not a good situation to be in whenever you're upside down like that, especially like if you make impact while you're still sliding upside down when you have no control, like Josh Berry did.
Yeah, that was what made it really bad for Berry, was flipping over and being on his lid and then slamming the wall, even though it was into a safer barrier, but it still doesn't make it good. And then they paved the whole infield. Now the backstretch, they've paved everything, but that hasn't dissipated anything. It's almost like they might have to maybe add like some sort of surface adjustment to that infield area there. I know that the eyesore that is Paul Ricard has, with all those stupid colors that they have. I think there's a surface change or adjustment to slow down the cars or vehicles so that they don't go off, at a high rate of speed and hit the fence. I think there might be an idea to go and maybe fix some of these issues. But it seems like something that was a temporary solution 37 years ago, that because the cars were light in the ass end and they were going over 210 miles an hour, we're going 190 in 2024, 190 plus, and you have all these years of engineering and whatever. And granted, I get that cars can take off, but I mean, I think it seems to happen enough to where I would believe they don't want it to happen that much. So, and it's a lot of destroyed equipment when you consider how expensive these cars are to maintain and the whole bit. And the point you made about Dallara is interesting for sure, considering how much they're involved in racing and all these different series too. I mentioned the Austin Dillon thing earlier. He's not gonna have a locked-in spot. He has to win this weekend to make it in. We have, there's news that came out today. We're doing this on a Monday, as per our usual. Hermanos Rodriguez Circuit in Mexico will host the Cup Series next year, along with Xfinity, which they did for many years. So Xfinity will come back. Cup will be there for the first time, so Nacho Libre gets to have a home race. Shane Van Gisbergen's probably circling that one, since he's going to be a full-time driver next year in a Cup Series driving an 88 car. So, interesting number choice. But based on Justin Marks, every number choice he's made, he's called the driver that is connected to it or something and asked for permission, and they gave it to him or whatever. Like whether it's, I mean, he bought Ganassi's team, so that's why the one was there, but I think he talked to Kurt Busch. Then the 99 was, he went to Roid Rage or Roush or whatever, and now in this case he asked old Junebug, his buddy, if he was cool with it. I'm like, why don't you go next level? Why don't you go 28? I would have marked out so much if they went 28. You know, like that would have been cool. You know, we have the 3 car back. We've had the 88. You know, it doesn't really connect in a sense, but I guess it does because of Connor Zilic. But SVG, the 97 was available, you know, and that's his number. I would think that marketing wise, that would make more sense, but I guess they wanted to do something with the 88. So, and Zilic is driving the 88 for JRM. But so there was that bit of news. Trying to go through. Yeah, Zane Smith, as it stands now, he's out at Trackhouse after basically angling to try to get to Trackhouse. It looks like, based on the way silly season's going, he might end up back at Front Row Motorsports. That's an option there. It also looks like Justin Haley's going to leave Rick Ware and go to Spire to drive for Rodney Childers in the 7, which would be interesting. Coming back to the Chevy camp after basically moving over randomly to the Ford camp with thoughts that he was going to take over the 6 car. Now going back the other way to Chevy and joining a team with McDowell coming in as a full-time driver, and they're taking that 71 car fully in-house instead of it being a part Spire, part Trackhouse deal. And then the 77 with Carson Hocevar. So that's an interesting team going into next year. And I mean, I'm not sure. I forget who I saw there for Rick Ware, but both of those cars are in play. AJ Allmendinger got announced as he's coming back to Cup full time, and but they don't know what they're going to do with the second car. So I don't know which number he's going to run, whether he's going to run 16 or 31. He's been running the 16 for I don't know how many years for Colleague, but whichever one he's running, the other one, it doesn't sound like they're going to have a full-time driver. They're going to have a mix of drivers again, which is interesting, which means that they're going to move on from Hemrick. So I don't know what Hemrick's situation will be at that point. So there's a lot going on in that back end of the chartered cars. We also know that, I mean, Justin Marks did not want to say how much he spent to buy one of Tony's the Stewart Haas charters. I'm gonna venture to say that it probably is around 40 million minimum to go and get that charter, because Front Row kind of made out like bandits when they went and got that extra charter from SHR. They probably got a Ford discount or something, but Trackhouse and now 2311, if whatever the hell Trackhouse paid, you can probably add another 10% premium on for 2311 for what supposedly is going to be Riley Herbst driving a third 2311 car next year. A lot going on in the silly season. You got a lot with these Xfinity drivers. There might be some options, honestly, for some of these Xfinity guys that haven't announced a deal. Maybe Harrison Burton goes to Ware because, he has marketability. He's got Dan Doyle and Dex Imaging. He's got money that way. And then, of course, his dad has a name. He has a name and recognition and all that. So maybe he gets a reprieve and gets to stay up in the Cup Series because he got that win. But and also there was the announcement talking about 2311 that Upper Deck Trading Cards is joining 2311. They'll be sponsoring Tyler Reddick at the Southern 500, and they've made a deal with Reddick and with Darrell Walsh Jr. to be the first two drivers included in a Upper Deck trading card, from first two racers they've had in 20 years. So it's pretty crazy to think. So a lot going on, Josh, in a couple of weeks. But what are some of your takeaways in terms of the silly season? It's getting crazier, and I guess it shows the supply and demand part. We still don't have a charter agreement either, which also makes things, or a schedule, but we're getting bits and pieces as we get closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think for me, I start off with SVG going to Cup. Racing the number 88. So, obviously Dale Jr.'s gotten, given the, I guess, blessing or whatever, and has conceded the 88 to Trackhouse essentially, because Zilich is going to run the 88, which I wonder if that's going to be 88 stylized with the Trackhouse trademark slash that they put in their numbers now, or if it's going to be the same JRM styling regardless. But obviously Zilich running 88 in Xfinity, and then for some reason SVG running 88 in Cup. When I agree with you there. He's been 97 forever since he went to supercars and all that stuff. So wonder why they didn't go with 97 in Cup, and that's his branding there. So very curious, but there'll be a reason later on why they talk about why they chose number 88 for SVG. But at least it's a good driver running the 88. I'll say that. So can trust that he's gonna do well, or somebody that's of major talent going and running a number like that. So I would like to know what the reasoning is behind that there. Justin Haley potentially, like you said, going to Spire there with Rodney Childers in the 7 car. That's a pretty good opportunity there. And we've seen what he's been able to do in the Rick Ware cars this year, taking a car that's, basically a backmarker car and doing a lot more, outperforming his equipment. So, during a lot of points during the year. So, and we saw him ran up front here at Daytona, which, it's super speedway, but, he's been able to prove that that car can run up front. So, now he's going to potentially, like you said, could be going to the 7 in Cup with Childers, who's a great crew chief, very talented there. So, major asset for that program as well. So, potentially could be big opportunity for Justin Haley, which, he was in Cup with colleague there for a few years and it didn't really work out. But, maybe now he's got more experience and has shown that he can bring or outperform his own equipment. Definitely could be a huge opportunity there for him there. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting with the silly season. And of course, like you said, we haven't had a charter agreement yet. So, hopefully that gets resolved up soon. And then, of course, the schedule, which we've been getting bits and pieces, potentially a race in Mexico City, I guess, where they raced before nationwide back in the day, and all that stuff. Potentially looking at another street course or rotating the street course potentially, like in the future, not next year, but maybe in 2026, going to San Diego potentially, and then they're also exploring options, including going to Baltimore, which that will be interesting, which we've seen a Baltimore Grand Prix before with IndyCar back in the day in 2010, 2011, 2012. So that should be a interesting thing if they decide to go to another city for the street course race, or maybe a second street course race or something there. But I think the other thing was the Bowman Gray. We're going back to Bowman Gray for the Clash next year in 2026. So taking the All-Star or the Clash, Busch Clash, taking it from LA, going back to Bowman Gray, which I think logistically it's a good move because, they don't have to fly out to California. They don't have to convert the LA Coliseum into a temporary track. They can just go to a track that's already existing, one that's certainly a lot closer to the core culture of NASCAR, of course, and maybe we'll see actually a good race there, like what we usually see at Bowman Gray. So that'll be interesting. Next year, of course, lose kind of the exposure by being in LA versus going back to Bowman Gray, but maybe it's healthier overall. Certainly less cost to be able to run that event to start the year there. So just to go back real quick to the San Diego thing, it seems like in addition, NASCAR has spoken to groups, like I said, to Baltimore, but also Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and some from the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, very interesting. Maybe we have a Seattle Grand Prix of NASCAR or something, which I don't think we've ever seen a street course race up that far there. I think, yeah, IndyCar has only done stuff in Canada, I think, on a street race there. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting if they decide to do that. All of those very curious choices for NASCAR to explore a potential street race at. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do there in the future. But yeah, that's definitely a lot happening now in silly season, and I guess now just kind of waiting for the schedule to come out and we can start planning out the year on trips and stuff, or for everybody, for fans to where they're going to go. I know a lot of tracks have already done their individual schedule and have already kind of announced what dates they're going to have. So there's already a lot being planned there. So yeah, it's definitely been a lot of busy stuff happening, I guess, news-wise here lately, especially in the Cup Series.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you brought up Pacific Northwest. They went to Portland for a few years with Xfinity. Used to have trucks at Portland International Raceway, where Indy cars were this past weekend, and have been for many years on and off. But they are looking at the temporary circuit option, which would bring in big cities in terms of sports. You talk about, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, San Diego. It makes a lot of sense because of one, the weather, two, they don't have football anymore. So that would be a huge get. The Padres are whatever. They do have a great stadium and they have a big payroll, but the Padres don't really win. It's similar to the LA Angels sucking too. So it would it gives a race in California, which I'm sure NASCAR wants. Whether it's San Diego, LA, Sacramento, because that's the capital, that would be an idea. I think also the Pacific Northwest has not really had a lot of NASCAR exposure over the years outside of the West Series or the Northwest Tour late models. So that would be an idea. The Baltimore one would be funny because Brett Griffin wouldn't be able to deal with it. So maybe he'd finally have the stroke that he deserves. But either way, I mean, Baltimore, they ran it and they lost money for like 2-3 years. And it was a great location right next to Camden Yards. And they had it right there close to the waterfront and all. And I really should have went one of them years because they had the launch pad over the train tracks there. That was cool. Similar to the San Jose Indycar race where they had launch pads for like it was playing Mario Kart. So that would be cool, and seeing that in a cup cars taking air, Xfinity car, that'd be something. But we'll see what happens with all that. We'll move to the Xfinity Series race, Daytona, and Ryan Truex, that Truex kid from Marietta, New Jersey, gets his second win of the season. They said it was second of his career. It's not his second of his career. It's his third win. So I don't know who wrote that, but he goes and gets his second win of 2024, third win of his career in the Wawa 250. Teammate Chandler Smith qualified on pole and finished second. Parker Kligerman third. Riley Herbst fourth. Ryan Sieg fifth. Jordan Anderson, one of his limited starts for his own team, finished sixth. His crew chief was America's crew chief, also known as father-in-law, Larry McReynolds, showing that he still has chops for super speedway crew chiefing. He has quite a great track record doing that. Justin Allgaier, Sheldon Creed. Justin Allgaier won both stages. So he's got like 96 stage wins so far this year. And Sheldon Creed, Leland Honeyman gets a top 10. Kyle Weatherman last week or at Michigan nailed a wall. Or was it Weatherman or was it Balicki? Whatever. The 91 slammed the wall at Michigan. And then now this week they get a top 10 finish. Yeah, so that was that. Who knew Akinori Ogata? They got in a wreck in the first lap, really? Oh, yeah, that's lovely. Lap 2.
Yeah, it was the first lap of the race.
Yeah, so then Tim Vines was in the... Oh, man. Wow. They really allow anybody... if you're breathing, they're going to allow people to run at Daytona. It's almost like they're turning into ARCA. You had Gus Dean in the 15, you had Fines, and you had Akinori Ogata. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, so that was that. AJ Allmendinger was up front, had a chance, led the most laps, but ended up in 24th.
Yeah, he turned himself or tried to throw a block and got spun out going into turn one.
Spun out. Yeah, so that'll always help out there. Yeah, I mean, Truex going out there led the second most laps on the day. They had a really fast Supra, and Truex going out. It's his brother won at Talladega back in the day. I'm not sure if he won in at Daytona and Xfinity. I probably did, because back in the day those Chance 2 cars were really, really good. But yeah, Ryan Truex, I don't know what else he has to do to get a full-time ride for Gibbs. You would think that winning would do it, but we'll see what happens. He went out there and did what he had to do, though, on Friday night, Josh.
Yeah, Ryan Truex had to win, which, I mean, he ran up front for the whole race and just happened to be, I think, in the right lane there at the end with AJ Allmendinger trying to go for the win and block and spin out and then hit the wall and turn 1 and 2 there to cause the final yellow. So yeah, for Ryan Truex, I don't know what else he needs to do to get a full-time ride, because he definitely has shown in this car that he deserves to be in the Xfinity Series full-time for sure. So got to wonder what else is there left for him to do. Maybe he has to go win on another non-plate track. Maybe that's the caveat. I don't know, but he's definitely, I mean, he's already won in here. I mean, won at Dover earlier in the year, so I mean, why not win at a place like Daytona or any other track and give him a full-time ride? I don't know, but for him, I mean, they were calling him, so this is an interesting, they were accidentally calling him Ryan Truex Jr. on the PA for a minute, and I was like, wait a minute, who are they talking about? And somebody, like, they were doing a fan interview with like the social teams or whatever on the video boards, and they're asking a trivia question, and it's like, who's the last driver to win both the Summer Cup race and the Daytona 500 in the same year? Everybody knows the answer is Jimmy Johnson, did back in 2013 there, and somebody, like, it was a, I don't know, boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband and wife combo, and the husband was like Jimmy Johnson, and then the lady was like Ryan Truex Jr. And then we were just, me and Joe, just because we were sitting next to each other for this one, because we were both in general admission, we were just like, what? And everything. And then later on, the announcers on the radio called him Ryan Truex Jr., and then they had to catch themselves. Oh, so excuse me, Ryan Truex. And I'm like, come on, guys. And so that's why I texted in the group chat with you and Joe, like, Ryan Truex Jr. won the race. So that's something that I thought was funny, but that was a funny bit there. But yeah, not a whole else, I mean, went on. I mean, I think, this race did seem as, I guess, volatile as the Cup race, although there was definitely a lot of accidents in this one for sure, like the the first caution, of course, coming out on the first lap of the race, which, that was like, what the heck type of deal there, like, already we're wrecking on the first lap, get it together type of thing. But then that just allowed for the first like 10 laps or so to be under caution, and then at that time at 7 p.m. The Jacksonville Jaguars are playing the Atlanta Falcons on preseason, and so while caution was going on, I flipped on to YouTube TV and was able to see Trevor Lawrence throw a second touchdown to Evan Ingram there in that game. So at least I was able to see that, and then I flipped it back to the race. But that accident, which I guess took out Austin Hill, so I guess it was a good accident to have on the first lap there. And then later on, with Cole Custer got in an accident. Jesse Love was involved. Jet Burton, Sammy Smith. So a lot of guys on the front stretch off of the turn 4 there, backstretch, and then had a red flag there at the end, which I think SVG was involved in that one. So 5 laps to go. So that was not as eventful as the Cup race, but definitely a lot of stuff happening up front. So would have liked to have seen. I don't think in this one they had a green flag pit stop either, but would have liked to have seen that. So this is only the second time I've attended the Xfinity Series at Daytona. Went back in 2015 on July 4th, but this one here, they went and ran. So glad I was able to go, of course, but also glad rain didn't interrupt the events, which it was looking like, because they canceled the second round of qualifying for Xfinity, and they didn't do that, but then they were able to run the second round of qualifying for Cup there, so that was interesting. But rain didn't affect either of the races. When a few days in the forecast before the race showed that that there was going to be rain, big chance of rain, and it had rained a lot in Central Florida that week. So glad we didn't have weather affect the actual racing when weather's affected NASCAR as of late a ton of times. So glad I was able to see both races, of course, and Ryan Truex Jr. getting the win and proving that he deserves to be in the Xfinity Series.
Whatever his name is, as Charles Barkley would say, whether he's Ryan Truex Jr., whether he's Ryan Truex, you have to ask Martin Sr. about that. We'll see. I don't think Ryan cares what the hell they call him if he actually had a full-time ride. So we'll see what happens with that. The points, I forgot to mention the points in the Cup Series. So I'll just go back to that first. Driver points right now, Tyler Reddick has a 17-point lead on Kyle Larson, 18-point lead on William Clyde Elliott II. And that's the battle for the regular season title and the 15 playoff points that come with that. Essentially, Reddick or Elliott really want to win it because it would get them right in the mix. Playoff point-wise, Denny Hamlin got nailed with an engine penalty. That was one thing we forgot in that whole roundup of news. And he lost, 15 or 10 or 15 playoff points or something. So he lost 10 playoff points because now he's down to 11. So he'd be further back starting the playoff, but his driver might not be. So that'll be something. The top 8 in points, all of them have won a race. Truex 9th, Ty Gibbs 10th, and Christopher Buescher in 11th. Right now, Darrell Wallace Jr. Would be, he's 21 points back. And then you add another 6, so 27 back is Ross Chastain. And they're 13th and 14th in points. Of the drivers that are outside of the 16 that have a win, that'll be Suarez, Gumby, and Harrison Burton. As we mentioned before, so that for all the regulars there. So so 3 drivers outside of the 16 that are in. So that will be the battle going into this weekend. 21, so it'll be the battle between those 3 drivers for essentially one spot. Martin Truex, with some stage points, will lock himself in to the playoff. Gibbs just has to have a solid day If he has a Toyota, if one of them has one of the, I mean, especially Gibbs, if he were to have one of them Toyota engine failures, it could go against him. Buescher, he ran really well at Darlington earlier in the spring. Chastain has always been good at Darlington. Bubba hit or miss, so we'll see what happens with that. Xfinity side, we have regular season points leaders Justin Allgaier, because he's won 13 stages, a 33-point lead. Cole Custer the last 2 weeks has had issues. He was leading the points for a good part of this season. He's lost a lot of points the last couple of weeks. Chandler Smith is third. Hill fourth. AJ Allmendinger fifth. Herbst sixth. Creed, Jesse Love, Parker Kligerman, Ryan Sieg, Sammy Smith, Shane Van Gisbergen are in the top 12 in points overall. Sam Mayer outside. He's the only regular that's outside of the points because he had such a rough start to the year. SVG will end up being there probably, but he has 3 wins. Sam Mayer has 2 wins, so they'd move up pretty far. Parker Kligerman actually has minus playoff points, interestingly, because of the penalty he got a couple weeks ago. The battle for the Xfinity cut off AJ Allmendinger, pretty solid. So is Sheldon Creed. Parker Kligerman at plus 44. Ryan Sieg is plus 15 over Sammy Smith. Buckshot Jones minus 108. So that's basically Buckshot Jones has to win a race to make it in, and that's everybody else too. Sieg and Sammy Smith, that's where the mix is there. I mean, you have Kligerman, who's run relatively well. You have Allmendinger, who's been really consistent. Not had true pace, but been able to put themselves in a position, top 10 finishes, while they haven't had the best cars this year. Move on to the Truck Series. After this past weekend at the Milwaukee Mile, they'll have just over 3 weeks, 3+ weeks between their first and second race of the playoffs, since it's a Truck Series. But Lane Riggs goes and gets the win in the Leuna 175. So that was first win for him, and the Front Row Motorsports, that's I think the 4th different winner for that organization in the Truck Series, because you had Todd Gilliland, Zane Smith, Moffitt, and now Lane Riggs, who I think both of us really thought was going to have a much better year this year, but they had so much bad luck early in the season. They used him as an example in terms of getting penalized on the racetrack for rough driving, but they don't do it to Austin Dillon. He's won the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series championship a few years ago. I think he drove for. Didn't he drive for Junior? I feel like he drove for Junior. I might be wrong, but
I think maybe in Lane Riggs, maybe in late models, might have driven.
Yeah. I feel like he drove for Junior in the late models at some point. And so he's Scott Riggs, who had a long career in NASCAR's top 3 series. His son goes out there, gets a victory. He's one of the only drivers right now in the Ford pipeline. I mean, I guess now you can add Sam Mayer, you can add Sheldon Creed to that mix. Probably Zane Smith as well, but Zane Smith will already be in the Cup Series. You have Gagson and I forget who, and then Todd Gilliland will be there. So I guess the pipeline for Ford isn't as bad as it seemed, but Lane Riggs went out there yesterday late in the race, led the last, 25, so 52 laps of the race. That was just after the stage 2 caution went out there and was able to dominate. I don't know who drove whatever that 21 truck who wrecked on lap 45. I don't even know who that guy is. I've never even heard of him. So I don't even know who ran the truck. That's a thing in itself. So they need the field fillers. They're coming up with some interesting people now to fill fields in NASCAR. Lane Riggs, one of only 2 non-playoff drivers in the top 10. Riggs over Ty Majeski in a home game, of course, being a Wisconsin native. Christian Eckes, and he qualified on pole. Christian Eckes started 3rd. Those 2 guys basically dominated the race. Nick Sanchez in 4th. Taylor Gray in 5th, Tyler Ankrum in 6th, Corey Heim, Daniel Dye, who was announced as a full-time driver in Xfinity next year for Colleague, Ben Rhodes, the defending series champion, and Matt Crafton round out the top 10. Tanner Gray started 2nd, finished 11th. The 45 truck is in the playoff based on owners' points. There in Honeycutt. Caden Honeycutt finished 12th. Grant Enfinger finished 13th. Sammy Smith driving for Spire. The 7 is in the owners' playoff. They finished 17th. And Raja Karuth, who had to start tailback, as Rusty Wallace would say, finished 18th. And so this race was essentially 3 trucks: Majeski, Christian Eckes, somehow or another Ty Dillon won a stage. And I don't know. I guess that's but there was probably pitch strategy or something going on, because they had from 52 to 57, and then Christian Eckes took over after that. But I mean, credit to Lane Riggs, 2nd-generation driver on a weekend where you had Harrison Burton also get it done. Big deal for him and that organization, Front Row Motorsports, as they are moving towards the future, it seems, and solidifying themselves as a factor after so many years in the sport. Lane Riggs going out there beating Ty Majeski. They were running lines that I've never seen run at the Milwaukee Mile. They were about like 4 lanes off of the yellow line, white line, whatever. They were out in the boondocks running. They have so little horsepower. They were shifting. I know Crafton, I think, was shifting there. So unique lines at the Milwaukee Mile, but Lane Riggs showing what kind of talent he has had in the late models with that victory, and then dislocated his shoulder and needed his pit crew to go and put it back. So that was a bonus that we didn't know we needed there at the end of that race, Josh.
I just want to know, how do you dislocate your shoulder celebrating? But I mean, I guess that happens sometimes, and I mean, it's a young guy, so it's like, how do you do that? But I mean, clearly, he was that jubilant, which I guess it makes for a funny story. And he said it's happened before, so that's kind of funny to see. But yeah, like you said, that was a very interesting line that him and some of the other trucks were running closer to the wall than what you would normally see. Because I think Milwaukee is a place where you definitely run a lot closer to the apron. There being a flat track, so kind of curious now what's IndyCar going to look like here, especially with the hybrid system that they're going to run, with line they're going to run there at that track. But with the truck series, it seems like now they figured out a different line to run, so we'll have to see if that carries over into future years running there, especially if Xfinity goes back to that track, which they probably should. But the Lane Riggs finally, because we've seen how he's been doing this year. We've picked him a couple times as wild card. Has had multiple opportunities, ran well at North Wilkesboro. Had a lot of bad luck. Got penalized 2 laps at Nashville for spinning somebody out. So it's been a up and down year for him. So he finally gets his first win. So well deserved for him, of course. But as far as the playoff contenders here in this race, for Christian Eckes, he still ran well, ran third. Felt like Corey Heim, I felt like he ran, he finished 7th, but I thought he would, be closer towards the front, battling it out with Christian Eckes, but didn't even lead a lap in this one. So that's a little surprising there. Majeski, of course, battling it out and almost had an opportunity to win there, was closing in late, but wasn't able to close in time to get to the Lane Riggs there. So 2 of those guys definitely had good runs. But for Corey Heim, little bit shaky ground there as far as the playoffs go, and everything. He's still in, but definitely would have thought he could make up some ground here in this race for supposedly who might be in the best car in this series, but we'll see. But I think other guys that in this field that probably didn't need the run that they had. I think Rajah Caruth finished 18th and qualified 8th, so definitely didn't go in the direction that he needed to go in for this championship. And we thought maybe he could be a outside contender, but already behind in 10th in the standings. And Ben Rhodes, former champion, of course, last year and in 2021, 9th in this playoff. Not a good start. Brandon Finger, of course, contending for the championship last year, 8th place on the outside looking in. So a lot of guys that maybe we thought would be competitive in this playoff for, potentially having a good run here off to a bad start. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I think top 3 very solid, but then other guys we thought might be players definitely not off to the best start that they could be.
Yeah, definitely for Raja, he had issues and had to start in the back and then never really was able to get the track position he needed, didn't have the speed. Ben Rhodes has had a deficit all year, so if he were to go and get a 3rd championship, it would be a miracle, really. You have 2 tiers. You have basically the 4 trucks that have done the majority of the winning this year: Eckes, Majeski, Heim, Sanchez, in that order in points right now, but really Heim, Eckes, Majeski, and Sanchez. Then you have from Taylor Gray all the way down, separated by 17 points. So, that's 15 points. Yeah, my bad, 15 points. So that's that can change. It was even closer going into this first race. So yeah, Bristol coming up in a few weeks' time. You have, after that, you have, trying to see where, go back to that. That would be trucks schedule. Yeah. So after Bristol, they'll go to Kansas for the cutoff. So that'll be a 1.5 mile racetrack. Once they get into that, they'll have 3 consecutive weeks that they'll race. So you'll get the end of the first round, you'll start the second round, a couple of weeks off, then 3 consecutive weeks to end the season. So, that's the Truck Series. Went through the points there. Okay. Let us move over to the IndyCars at Portland. I mean, we missed out on Gateway where there was a controversy. Will Power raging at his soon-to-be future corporate teammate and David Malukas, who had a chance to win. David Malukas left in tears. Then you had, and then Will Winch Power going and flipping off Joseph Newgarden, who we thought brought him up too slow. And Joseph Newgarden goes and gets the victory. I don't know how many times he's won at Gateway, but that's a lot. And then Will Power goes out and gets a big win at Portland, keeps himself within 1 race gap of Alex Palou. And yeah, so there's that. Yeah, so we have Power gets the victory. I want to go to bring the IndyCar results. .com. The result race recap. Winch Power gets the win by 9.82 seconds over Alex Palou. Only 4 laps of yellow. On the first lap, it was Scott Dixon got taken out by Pietro Fittipaldi, and then also took Alexander Rossi in that wreck. You have Will Power, Palou, Newgarden gets 3rd place, 23 seconds behind. Colton Herta 4th. Marcus Armstrong rounds out the top 5. Marcus Ericsson, Scott McLaughlin from 20th, finishes 7th. Root Beer Floathead getting his first career pole, ended up 8th. Green Rehal qualified in the Firestone Fast 6, but had to take an engine penalty. Started 12th, finished 9th. Kyle Kirkwood rounds out the top 10. There were 16 cars on the lead lap. Will Power led 101 of the race's 110 laps. That's really what it is. Power dominates moving into these last 3 races, and just like most years with IndyCar, it'll come down to the wire. But this year they have 3 oval races to close the season. And in this sense, Josh, are we looking at a possibility? I mean, Will Power lost a championship way back when to Dario Franchitti and others because of the schedule layout and just not being able to get the job done. Does the oval-centric end of the season put him in the driver's seat to go and win this championship, or will Palou do what he needs to do, which is something that he kind of has proven ever since he's been a Ganassi guy, to go out there and possibly win a 3rd IndyCar championship and 2nd in a row?
I mean, it's going to be an interesting way that this plays out because, it seems like we've kind of not given the credit that Alex Palou probably deserves on oval racing here in the IndyCar series, but he's been a good racer so far this year on ovals when it's counted. The only blemish that he really has is Iowa this year, crashing out in the first Iowa race and finishing 23rd there, but otherwise oval wise, second at the second Iowa race, and then Gateway finished fourth here. So there's a lot of, and of course fifth at the Indianapolis 500. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for Alex Palou to go out and possibly even win at Milwaukee. So I think, yeah, if he wins at Milwaukee, it's probably going to be a very tough deal there for him to win the or for anybody else to win the championship. But I think for the rest of the field, I mean, I think Power, of course, has shown in the past that he can run good on ovals, but this year for Will Power, I mean, he's been pretty good overall, but with multiple wins here and the most wins in the series right now. But in 2024, I clicked on the wrong year for him, but he finished Iowa, was out of the picture on the first day, won the second Iowa race, so there's a little bit of stuff there, and of course was running top 10 in the Gateway race when he crashed out of there, and then Indianapolis 500 crashed out. So he's been a little bit more inconsistent on the ovals than Alex Palou has this year, so actually way more inconsistent there, but he does have the one win at Iowa over Alex Palou in terms of oval victories this year. But for Will Power, it's going to be interesting going here this weekend. I mean, of course, he's been to Milwaukee before, but Alex Palou hasn't. But of course, it's been a very long time since anybody's driven at Milwaukee in the IndyCar series. So for Will Power, it's going to be definitely something that they look back in their history for at Milwaukee, which last time that they ran at Milwaukee crashed and finished in 22nd. So he's won there in the past, 2014, so be leaning a lot of experience there, finishing the podium a couple of times, top 5 a couple of times at Milwaukee, all the way back in 2011. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch all of this play out. If Palou can hold his own on the last 2 ovals of the year with 3 races between them, but it could, if he slips up at 1 or 2 of those tracks or races, then it's going to make for interesting championship battles. So obviously to open the door for Power to really close, I think Palou is going to have something happen to him at one of these races here in the doubleheader. And then, of course, it's going to come down to the final one to see if Power can close in on Palou. But I think otherwise for the standings, you have in the standings Palou and Colton Herta, which, I mean, it could be interesting. Colton Herta is a little bit further back, but he's potentially somebody that could possibly make a play if he is able to, I guess, probably win out the rest of the year, which I don't know if that would happen, but I think it's probably just going to be Will Power and Alex Palou to close out the year. So I think Palou's probably got it in the bag, but can't count out something happening and Will Power being in position to possibly get a 3rd IndyCar title.
Yeah, that would be something. I forget, I think it was on Twitter where if Palou were to pull this off, I think there's only 5 drivers that are ahead of him in the history, or 6 drivers ahead of him in the history of IndyCar racing. AJ Foyt, Scott Dixon, Mario Andretti, Dario Franchitti. That was 4 of them, and I'm trying to remember who else. It was I think it may be Al Unser. I feel like it's Al Unser. And then there was one other one. I believe off, but I'm just forgetting offhand in terms of IndyCar champions.
Yeah, not only that, but 3 championships in 5 total seasons of racing in this series. I think that has to be up there regardless.
Yeah, I mean that's really sporty, and for somebody who came over. Oh yeah, and Sebastian Bourdais. There you go. That's 4. He's a 4-time champion. Yeah, if he joins, it's Foyt, Dixon, Mario Andretti, Sebastian Bourdais, and Dario Franchitti. And then if Alex Palou was able to get a 3rd championship, you join Louis Meyer, Ted Horn, Jimmy Bryan, all I think Indy 500, or not Ted Horn, Louis Meyer and Jimmy Bryan were Indy 500 winners. Rick Mears, of course, 4-time Indy 500 winner, along with Al Unser, Bob Rahal, Sam Hornish Jr. there. So that would be the list that he joins. So that's a really good list. Palou, Power Herta, Scott McLaughlin, Scott Dixon, who has had a really bad summer issues, finished dead last. This might be the first time, I think, in his whole entire career that he's finished dead last in 2 races in a season. He fell out of Mid-Ohio before the race even started. Then this race, so I mean, it's just he had a chance to win this championship, and it kind of went up in smoke. Pato O'Ward had a terrible weekend. Ended up losing ground. He's in 6th. 7 points ahead of Newgarden. Kirkwood, Rossi, and Root Beer Floathead has a 9-point lead on Felix Rosenquist. There's a 13-point lead on Christian Lundgaard, 16 on Armstrong, 17 on Ericsson. So there's actually a pretty good battle there for that last spot in the top 10 in points. I mean, and then they don't have the owners. They don't show the owners' points here. I don't think they only show. If they showed the owners' points, I think that would be interesting. Leader circle and all that going on. They hired Connor Daly at Juncos Hollinger to go and get him there, but they've had issues in the races, so we'll see what happens last 3. All right, so move forward to Formula One, and it was a pretty straightforward victory, in just under 23 seconds of victory for Lando Norris. But I say straightforward, it wasn't as straightforward as it may seem, in part because Lando Norris got in a terrible start again. But he was able to fade. He was able to fade that and get the job done for his second career Formula One victory, and go and get the result of the race. Yeah, so at the Dutch Grand Prix, Lando Norris over Fish Lips and Charles Leclerc. The battle from 2nd through 5th was only separated by 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds. 2nd through 4th was like 5 seconds there. So you got Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Carlos Sainz rounds out the top 5. Checo, Perez, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly, and Fernando Alonso rounding out the points finishers. There was only 8 cars on the lead lap. Lewis Hamilton got penalized for impeding Sergio Perez, even though he did everything he could to stay out of the way. Perez complained enough, they threw a penalty at Hamilton. He didn't have the pace to even make it into Q3 anyway, so that probably tells you why, in part, he ended up having to come from 12th to get to 8th, while Russell, he started third and finished seventh. So Mercedes, bad situation there. Oh, so it's Azerbaijan after Italy. Okay. But, I mean, Lando Norris goes and gets the victory, Josh. Moves to within 70 points of Fish Lips for the driver standings. And then 33 over Leclerc. Piastri is 21, 46 points in fourth. And then Carlos Sainz running out top 5. Lewis Hamilton right now is 18 points behind Carlos Sainz and 25 points behind Oscar Piastri. Perez in 7th, Russell 8th, and then the Aston Martins 9th and 10th. Stroll only 2 points ahead of Hulkenberg and Tsunoda. So yeah, that's what's going on. I mean, for Lando Norris, big win for him after a bad start. And it shows, that McLaren, I think, probably has the best car at the moment. As long as the drivers do what they have to do, they could compete for wins every week as we go through the rest of this Formula One season, Josh.
Yeah, they can compete for wins every week. We've seen it most of this entire season, but just been on driver decision making and the team strategy being up to par to be able to be in there, because we've seen them thrown away, both the driver and team throw away some races that they probably should have won here throughout this season. So 70 points for Verstappen going into Monza, so still pretty sizable lead, but obviously now they're very concerned about it, because if they keep losing to Norris, then there's possibility that the championship could be up for grabs late in the season, because we still have 9 races left to go here in the Formula One season. So if they have a couple more bad races, or they continuously get outclassed by Lando Norris or anybody else, it's bad news for Red Bull, of course. So it seems here Christian Horner says that maybe the higher downforce to counter tire wear didn't pay off for them. So and McLaren, they've been upgrading throughout the year to deliver performance. Red Bull, they've kind of plateaued in their performance so far. So we've been seeing that lately, and I think we're going to continue to see that throughout the rest of the year. So it's up to McLaren, I think, if they want to win this championship. So we'll see. We'll see if it happens. There's still a lot that could happen here, and I feel like 2021, seemed like it was close throughout the entire season. But I mean, I think there were points where we thought that Max had it in the bag. We thought Lewis had it in the bag at different points during that year, but then it ended up coming down to the final race. So definitely think there's possibility that we could have a similar type of battle brew if Red Bull continues to stumble in their efforts against McLaren. So yeah, that's going to be interesting there. But I think, for everybody else, I think Leclerc had a good finish here, finishing on the podium for the first, time in a while. It seems like his teammate didn't have as good of a race in Carlos Sainz, but still decent result there for Ferrari, who's they've been up and down, of course, and your guys in Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton penalty in qualifying, which I think you don't really have a lot or good things to say about that, which I probably agree with you there. coming from 12th to finishing 8th, so good effort there. And of course, teammate George Russell finishing in 7th there. So that's up and down result there for that weekend for Mercedes. But this was I guess it was an interesting race. Of course, Lando always finishes better than what he should be or what he needs to be, but he continues to have bad starts, but maybe it doesn't matter anymore. And as long as they can have a good race, they can overcome some of those bad starts.
When you have a pace advantage, I guess that's what it is, but you have to watch out for that in qualifying and depending on the racetrack too. I guess there's enough races where the math works if he were to get maximum points, that he could actually overtake Fish Lips if he were to get fastest lap. It's a max point, and wins. So we'll see what happens with that at Monza this coming weekend and the Italian Grand Prix. The one other thing I wanted to get into, Logan Sargent had a huge wreck in FP3, missed qualifying, was in the race and was basically non-existent. It looks like whether it's Liam Lawson or Mick Schumacher, the end is near for Logan Sargent, at least in a Formula One car. It sounds like he's been negotiating to come to IndyCar, and maybe we expedite that here. I don't think it'll happen here for obviously not for Milwaukee and whatever, probably not for Nashville, but I figure soon after Nashville, then I think we might be seeing Logan Sargent here on this side of the Atlantic and starting his IndyCar career in earnest, probably with Prema, but there are other options out there in the IndyCar paddock. But I'll just say this as an American, of course, motorsports fanatic and a American motorsports supporter, watching the way that things have gone in terms of not only Formula One and MotoGP, which we'll mention in a moment, is so disappointing because there used to be Mario Andretti won the world championship, Phil Hill won the world championship. There were American drivers that were able to hold a job. Cheever, for God knows how many years, held a job. Now we've had multiple Americans now essentially flame out Formula One, whether it's Michael Andretti, Scott Speed, and now Logan Sargent. So, of course, with Williams, they're getting ready for Carlos Sainz to come in, and so that'll be something with that. We move to the GSP Roundup. This past weekend, we have Andrea Kimi Antonelli is going to make his first FP1 appearance just after turning 18 a few days ago at Monza, and then they're probably going to announce him as the other driver next to Woody at Mercedes. You have former F2 driver Jack Doohan getting announced as the second driver at Alpine. So that's so they didn't run at Zandvoort. I thought they ran at Zandvoort, but no. So standings going through. That was the last one. So the F1 Academy was at the at Zandvoort Circuit for their racing. Trying to get to F1 Academy. Go and pick that. The races there. Trying to go and get the standings. Yeah, that's calendar and results. For Zandvoort, Abby Pulling gets the race 1 win, and Dorian Pan gets the race 2 win. So Pulling has won 5 races. Pan has won 2. Chloe Chambers, speaking of Americans, the only driver outside of those 2 to win a race. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, in race 1, Pulling gets the win over so in race 1, Pulling over Nuria Marti and Woog, Gottman and Dorian Pan rounding out the top 5. Chloe Chambers was 6th. Leah Block was 9th. And then in race 2, that's race 2. Dorian Pan, Wu, Abby Pulling finishes 3rd. Hamna Al-Kabasi, Hooray Marti was 8th. Leah Block finished 15th in that race. Points standings going into Singapore in a month's time for them is 70, Pulling 71 points ahead of Dorian Pan, and Chambers 30 points behind Pan. The battle between her, Nuria Marti, and Woog was only 5 points. Leah Block is ahead of, or tied with, Amna Al-Kabasi, ahead of 4 drivers, and then only a point behind 2 more. And you're really at, there's like 6 points all the way to 10th in the championship. We'll see what they do at Singapore. So the F3 series has their season ending races at Monza. The standings going in: Luca Fornaroli has a 1-point lead on Gabriele Mini, and 6 points on Luke Browning. Arvin Lindblad is 16 points behind in 4th, and Daniel Boganovic rounds out the top 5. In F2, the standings see Isaac Hadjar 36 points out of Gabriel Bortoletto. 5 points out of Paul Aaron. Zane Maloney in 4th. Jack Crawford 5th. And then you have Andrea Kimi Antonelli 7th in points. Ollie Bierman 15th in points. So those 2 guys are going to Formula One next year. So we'll see what goes on with those guys. Okay. Then we will move to IMSA GT at VIR, Virginia International Raceway. Takeaways, Michelin Challenge, VIR. Petty's Skeen. Oh, yeah, so Mike Skeen was driving that Adam Petty tribute. Okay. Excuse me. It's IMSA's website is always great. I always complain about that, but the race results, Madison Snow Brian Sellers win overall over the Ford Multimatic Motorsports number 64 Mike Rockenfeller, Harry Tinknell, 3.368 seconds. And then the harder racing Aston Martin of Alex Ribero's Ross Gunn finished a further 0.8 of a second off in third. The second Mustang finished fourth with Dirk Muller and Joey Hand. The first GTD car, the Korthoff Preston Mercedes of Kenton Koch and Mikhail Grenier, get the victory in that class over Zach Robichon, Roman DeAngelis, and the harder racing Aston, and then the Lawrence Spinelli and Misha Goikberg, Forte Racing Lamborghini. So that's the Michelin GT Challenge at WeatherTech, or not WeatherTech, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. In terms of the point standings, schedule results, standings, right now going into what I believe is, you have Indy and Road Atlanta for GTP. You have Indy, Road Atlanta for LMP2. And then for GTs, they have Indy and Road Atlanta as well. So Lauren Heinrich has a 17-point lead on Ross Gunn. Brian Sellers and Madison Snow are over 100 points back. In third, and then Ben Barnicoat, Jack Hawksworth in fourth, and Antonio Garcia, Alexander Sims rounds out the top five. In GT Pro, in GTD, Philip Ellis, Russell Ward have a massive point lead over Robbie Foley and Patrick Gallagher, and Mikhail Grenier, and Parker is third, Parker Thompson fourth, Albert Costa Balboa and Manny Franco in the Conquest Ferrari are fifth. Let's move forward to the World Endurance Championship. World Endurance Championship. So the point standings there for heading into Lone Star Le Mans. Go to classification. Right now, Andre Lauderer, Kevin Estra, Lawrence Van Thor for Penske Porsche lead by 19 points over Antonio Fuoco, Miguel Molina, Nicholas Nielsen, Ferrari, and then the Toyota of Kamui Kobayashi, Nick DeVries, and Frederick. Yeah, those two guys are in third place in the World Endurance Drivers Championship. In the manufacturer's side, we have Porsche ahead of Toyota by 4, and then Aventine of Ferrari. And then the World Cup rivalry cars, you have the Hertz Team Jota number 12 to 40 plus 54 points there. Hertz Team Jota Sport first and fourth, and you have Proton Competition, AF Corsa in the middle. Alexander Malikin, Joel Stern, Klaus Bachler working closely at those. A 25-point lead. in that class. In GT3 teams, you have the Manti Racing 1 and 2 Team WRT, then Harder Racing, AF Corsa, rounding out the top 5. You have Indy next at Portland last week, and then Milwaukee this week. Standings as of now, Louis Foster still has a healthy points lead, 27, and he's 57, 59 points behind Louis Foster is Jacob Abel, who won the last race there. Louis Foster led into the building itself, the world thing. So, Louis Foster at Worldwide Technology Raceway, Louis Foster over Jacob Abel, Yuvan Sundaramurthy. It's Reese Gold, Josh Pearson, Taylor Ferns was 15th in that race. Miles Rowe wrecked. Then you had Jack William Miller, who wrecked as well. That was that race. Then so Iowa, Portland, Jacob Abel over Louis Foster, Bryce Aaron rounding out the top 3. Miles Rowe was 7th. Yuvan Sundaramurthy was 8th. You just have those people or whatever. Okay. MotoGP and Moto2. MotoGP. Back to Motorland is another. Oh, wait. You got Osterreich, then the standings heading in to the race itself at Aragon. Pecco Bagnaia has a 5-point lead on Jorge Martin. Then a huge gap, Enea Bastianini, Marc Marquez, Maverick Vinales. These big gaps between Bastianini, Marc Marquez, and then a huge drop off to Vinales, Binder Costa, Alicia Spargo, Fabio Di Gianantonio, and Alex Marquez rounding out the top 10. In Moto 2, Sergio Garcia has a 20-point lead over Ayagura, and then Joe Roberts in 3rd, Alonso Lopez and Felipe Allier round out the top 5 there. And the MotoGP, so then they're trying to find, so MotoGP, Moto2, got through that, and then NHRA, it's the big go, it's U.S. Nationals, biggest race of the year for the people of the NHRA, deeper fields, more competitive. Can Tony Stewart, after making final, go out and make runs? That's something that, and if possibly go out and win his first career race at the U.S. Nationals, that would be something. That would be a reversal of fortune compared to his history in big races. The last race before the countdown starts. So points as of points will Dallas. What is that? Names IGTG. Okay. points standings heading into the U.S. Nationals. Top 5 are locked in Top Fuel. Coletta, Langdon, Ashley, Torrance, Antron Brown. Then a big gap, Milliken, Stewart, Schumacher, Billy Torrance, Brittany Force. Round out the top 10. Those 5 have to lock in. Brittany Force has a 49 and 55-point lead over Josh Hart. So it'll be tough for him to get through. Jasmine Salinas would need to have a huge weekend to possibly leapfrog others. And funny car, Austin Brock and Bob Tasca, Matt Hagan, 12 points behind Tasca, J.R. Todd in 4th, only 4 locked in. I mean, John Force will more than likely stay in the top 10. Ron Capps, Blake Alexander, Daniel Wilkinson, Chad Green, Paul Lee. Paul Lee, who has a 16-point lead on Alexis DeJoria. So curious to see how that all pans out. Pro Stock, Dallas Glenn has a 184-point lead on the applied job. And then you have Glenn Anderson, Enders, Aaron Sandfield, Jeg Coughlin Jr., Troy Coughlin Jr., all the locked-in drivers as of now. Then you have Jerry Tucker, Christian Quadra, Eric Kramer, and Eric Latino. Kramer from, beautiful weather, but then it's 21. Then you have to do 41 because of layers there. So so that's the big go. We'll see what happens. So that's Pro Stock. In Pro Stock Motorcycle, top 6 are locked in. Gianna Evaristo and Hector Rana Jr. have to make a qualifying run, and I think they'll be all right. Steve Johnson, multi-time U.S. Nationals champion, in 9th. 31 points out of Chris Bostic. Bostic, who then bought. And then you got Ellie Tonga's 21 points out. Ingwerson is 42 points out, 12th. That is the big go. And we will move forward. Formula One, Italian Grand Prix, Monza, one of the classic circuits. I'm trying to remember who picked what. To go and look there in Picks channel. Josh, you picked first last time, so I'm going to go with we're talking about Italian Grand Prix. I'm gonna go with Lando Norris to win and Oscar Piastri second, so McLaren 1-2, and Carlos Sainz in third. I'm going to say that Fish Lips actually has a problem and finishes in 5th place. So that's probably the wild card, if anything. But I will say so. Picks challenge. Italian Grand Prix. Phil goes with Norris, and then so Norris, Piastri, and then and I said Leclerc. So the top 3 there. My wild card will be will be Lewis. I mean, it's a stretch, but considering how inconsistent Mercedes is, and he's not going to have a practice one either. They'll have less practice, so that'll be something how that works. How about you, Josh?
I mean, for you, that looks like kind of like 2021 with Leclerc, or not Leclerc, but Norris, Ricardo going 1-2 for McLaren. So that's an interesting lineup there. So I guess I'm gonna have to say Piastri wins the Grand Prix of Italian Grand Prix. So I'll say Piastri. Norris gets second, and I'll say that Verstappen gets third.
Valid, and keeps the points close between him and Norris there. Doesn't lose too many points that way. Milwaukee, they'll run 2 full races for the Indy cars, 250 lap races at the Milwaukee Mile. So high V Milwaukee Mile 250s. So they'll have race 1 on Saturday night. So that'll go under the lights. And then they will race on Sunday afternoon at 2:30, so quick turnaround. And that'll be the lead into the Southern 500. So Josh, you get first dibs on your winners. And then I don't know if you want to go full podium or if you want to just pick the winners. Let's see, what do you think?
I think we'll just stick with winners and wildcard here. So first race, I'll say Will Power wins on the first night. And wild card there, and who's a good wild card? Let me pull up the IndyCar thing here. This is interesting. Wild card, I don't know. We had, sorry, I don't know. Malukas? I'll go with Malukas as a wild card for the first one. Yeah, I know you're laughing at that because that's, after deciding and all that. And then race 2. Race 2, I'm going to say that Alex Blow figures it out and wins the second race, so that might close the door on the championship, but whatever. So we'll go with him. And then the wild card there. I don't know here because we already picked. I'll go with Siegel. So the 2 guys that one former McLaren guy and then another current McLaren guy that's maybe good on ovals too. So
went with the guy I was probably going to take in one of the races anyways, and Malukas, which is the easy one with the ovals, and then Gilbert Gottfried Jr., who took over Malukas' ride at McLaren. Malukas, of course, going to AJ Foy Racing next year. For me, the winner, race 1, I'm gonna go with Scotty McLaughlin to win race 1. Race 2, I'll say Scott Dixon, because he has nothing to lose at this point because he's not going to win the championship. My wild card picks for those 2 races. So 21. 21 drivers that have run every race. I'll say in race 1, my wild card will be. My wild card will be. Darn it. I'm gonna say. I was gonna say it, and I felt it was a Marcus Armstrong. So there you go. So race 1, Scotty McLaughlin to win, and Marcus Armstrong wild card. So all Kiwi choices there, and then race 2, I picked Scott Dixon to win, and based on the point standings, I picked though. I'll go. I mean, that's, you know what? I'll go Connor Daly. Connor Daly driving for Juncos Hollinger. And he's solid on ovals, so that would be a big one for them. Okay, so let's move forward to the Xfinity, which will be the Sport Clips Help a Hero 200 at Darlington Raceway. 38 drivers, nobody going home. That's not what I wanted. The entry list there, yeah. Trying to look through here. Pizza Face is going to be in the 15 for AM Racing. Clyde is going to be in the Hendrick 17. Joe Graff Jr. in the 19 for Gibbs. Christopher Bell in the 20. Corey Heim 26. 35 doesn't have anybody as of yet. Carson Quapple in the 88. Ross Chastain in the 92 for DGM. Greg Van Alsten the 07. Chad Fincham in the 14. Noah Gagson in the 30 for Rhett Jones, and then Garrett Smithley in the 45. I picked second, so then I'll pick first here. Christopher Bell gets the win, and my wild card selection for this race. Wild card will be. This is a tough one, but I will go with. Yeah, this is a hard one. I will go. I just go Leland Honeyman. I don't care. I mean, it's whatever. It is a wild card pick for sure. Xfinity at Darlington. Phil, Chris Bell, Lynn, and Leland Honeyman. Wild card. How about you, Josh?
I will go with Justin Allgaier winning the race, sweeping the year at Darlington, and extending his point lead as they close on the regular season championship, which he is in the point lead. And also, he autographed my hat on Friday, so pick him for the win. and I will go with Fast Pasta Anthony Alfredo as a wild card. Finished 14th here in the spring in the daytime race.
All right, and Anthony Alfredo wild card. All right, so that's Xfinity Series, and last but not least, of course, the Southern 500. The on the Cup Series, the Cookout Southern 500 entry list there, 37 cars for 40. So you have different, so track out, you have Busch Retro, curious as to what that'll be. For Ross Chastain, discount tire for Cindric, toys for Tots, for Bald Spot, Overstock for Josh Berry, Solomon Plumbing for Brad K, coming back to see if he can get a double at Darlington. LaJoy Chili's Catcherita, Morgan for Kyle Busch, Napa Gold Filters for Clyde, Bass Pro Shops in Winchester for Gagson, Sport Clips for Denny Hamlin, Menards and Richmond Water Heaters for Blaney, High Point for Chase Briscoe, Kaz Gralla back in the 15 for Rick Ware with Meat and Bone, SVG in the 16 with Acceptance Insurance. That's a new one. BillSubmarines.com for Chris Buescher. U.S. Air Force for Bubba. Circle for Hemrick. No sponsors listed for Michael McDowell, Todd Gilliland. Priest with Haas Tooling, John Ernie check with Mobile One. Eric Jones, Dollar Tree, Tyler Reddick with Upper Deck, as I mentioned earlier. Drumstick, Kroger and Drumstick for O. Richard. NC Fraternal Order of Police for Justin Haley. Keebler Gibbs with Monster Energy. Timmy Hill driving for Carl Long. Not sure what that is. Sponsor-wise, Zane Smith is just a W there. Zane Smith Focused Health. Carson Osavar, Bon Secours, Swamp Rabbits, and then Nacho Libre Freeway Insurance. So, Josh, you get first dibs here. Cup Series at Darlington.
I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick win the race to lock up the regular season championship here. Probably should have won this race in the spring there, so I think he gets it back here at the Southern 500 to close out the year for the regular season. And my wild card, I'm going to go with Michael McDowell as a wild card.
Okay. Interesting. He's someone that qualifies really well, so track position, at least early on, could play in his favor. Me, because I know my picks usually don't ever really go well anyways, and it doesn't really matter. We're not betting on them, and because I don't put out the goddamn show, it's not like it really, in a timely fashion, if I'm right or wrong, it don't really matter. So I'm going to pick Eric Jones to win. Because the fact is he's really good there. It would flip the playoff yet again. He's two-time winner of this race. There's no reason that I should be picking him. But I thought about this earlier, and I said, you know what? Just for the hell of it, because just to really have, like, Bubba, like, rage, and to have, like, Chris Buescher sitting there with Chris Buescher face, and then Ross Chastain probably chugging, like, shotgunning beers after the race, with Eric Jones going and getting a win, and Jimmy Johnson working the race for NBC, probably having a freak out. It would be interesting. Basically, I could use that as a win and my wild card.
I mean, yeah, why not? Yeah.
But you know what? Just out of curiosity, I'll just put it. I'm gonna put So Phil is that Jones boy to win, and SVG as my wild card because I want to see if he can actually make 500 miles at Darlington. I have a hard time, as much as and as talented as he is, as great of a driver as he is. The Darlington is a whole nother level, especially in a cup car. So we'll see what he can do. With that, Josh, I'll hand it off to you. Let us know what's going on in iRacing and all in the sim segment.
You gotta say who makes the playoffs, which...
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which I think by your statement, you're saying that Eric Jones makes the playoffs.
Yeah, so he'll take another spot, so that'll be 14 drivers. Or is that 14 winners? Is that what it is? Or is it 12 winners?
No, that'd be that'd be 14 because Truex and Gibbs are... Yeah. That would knock out Buescher.
Yeah. And that would mean Truex, which just needs a few points, and then Gibbs gets through relatively unscathed and makes it on points. That would be the playoff for me, and then I would say that I would agree with you that Tyler Reddick goes and gets the regular season title. So that would be huge for him in 23-11. With the disappointment, unfortunately, for Bubba. But that's me. How about you?
I'm gonna say no change in the playoff field as it currently stands, and I'll say that Bubba Wallace doesn't make it in. I don't think the 21 point gap is gonna be... I mean, he's done it before because he did it at Bristol last year, but that did take Joey Logano falling out very early to open that door for him last year. So I'm gonna say that the field doesn't change, and Chris Buescher's done pretty well here as of recently at Darlington. Of course, should have won at the spring race there, and that would have locked him in there in this playoffs. So we may not even be having this discussion here with that. So it's not impossible for any of these guys to make it in, like Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, or Kyle Busch, but I'm gonna say that it remains the same.
All right, that makes sense, and pretty much the way things have been going, it would probably fit. But I just wanted to have fun with it, so I said Eric Jones will win. So that would be insane, and it would be hilarious, because there's absolutely nothing that shows that they could do this. I guess you could talk about John Hunter Nemechek actually running decent at Indy when he had track position. And that's about it. I really don't know what else the legacy has done all year. I mean, Jimmy gets in the car every time he gets in the car and he looks washed. And so that's not great. So we'll see what happens, though.
I'm all for chaotic outcomes, so
we've had them since the Olympic break ended, so why not? Josh, let us know what's going on in iRacing. And
this week iRacing Cup Xfinity at Darlington this week. Trucks, also they've got them at Darlington, even though I don't think the trucks racing this week in real life. IndyCar Oval fixed at Charlotte. The Legends 87 at Old Charlotte from 2008. Regular IndyCar at Milwaukee this week. So a lot of interesting choices there. The Gen 4 at Homestead. So that might be fun as well for Gen 4 racing. Their sports car series, Ferrari GT3 at VIR. Got Global MX5s at Summit Point Raceway. Got the GT4 Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace production car sim challenge at Virginia International Raceway this week. Rainmaster Series at VIR. GR Butt Kicker Cup at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca this week. Let's see what else we have. The IndyCar Butt Kicker Pro Qualifying Challenge is happening at Mid Ohio this week. So they got that. Got Mustang Skip Barber at Summit Point Raceway. Their Pro GT Thrustmaster Challenge in the old Ford GT cars, so a lot of old content. So you need the HPD ARX-01, Ford GT Corvette, or Aston Martin GT1, so a bit of the older classes running at Daytona this week. Sports car, Formula car now. Ferrari Formula Fords at Laguna Seca. Formula V's at Lime Rock Park. IndyCar, of course, open wheel at Milwaukee Mile. USF 2000s at Milwaukee Mile. Rookie Formula Fords at Lime Rock Park. Skip Barbers at Lime Rock Park there, so should be interesting. Their official news this week on iRacing. E-Racing, I guess the E-Coca-Cola iRacing Series, the NASCAR, eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series racing at Texas Motor Speedway this week. It's part of their playoff run. So I think that starts out at Texas for some reason. Their World of Outlaws 24 pre-orders are now open, getting ready set to release on September 17th on PlayStation and Xbox. A gold edition is with extra DLC content pre-orders for World of Outlaws Dirt Racing 24, the official game of the World of Outlaws. That's also developed by iRacing. So iRacing isn't just iRacing. Of course, they've got the NASCAR console game coming out later in the year, next year, World of Outlaws, and they have this thing called Exocross, which is like a extraterrestrial racing game. So got that there. New tracks in the World of Outlaws game. You've got Millbridge Speedway, the go-kart small dirt track that's outside in North Carolina that a lot of Cup drivers take their families out to start out racing, like Brexton Busch, Owen Larson, etc. Kevin Harvick's Kern Raceway, which I think that's a paved short track, but in the game it's a dirt track here, there, and 410 non-wing sprint cars, micro sprints for a total of 11 different series, and then fully updated rosters for the 2024 season. So the deepest dirt World of Outlaws game, console game yet, so that might be a game to get on console. Of course, the game is $49.99, and the gold edition is $64.99, so actually a decent price for a racing game on PlayStation. Of course, I think regular PlayStation games go for $70, so you can get the gold edition for less than I think a regular PlayStation game right now, so, or Xbox game right now. So that's good for that, and definitely a lot of opportunity there on console to do that. So I think that's it this week for the iRacing stuff. I don't see anything else here on the news feed for iRacing, but definitely a lot happening, especially on console. Might have to pick up that World of Outlaws game. Not really a dirt guy, but it might be fun to play that game on console just to kind of get a feel of what iRacing is producing on consoles as they get ready to release NASCAR 25 next year. So that might be a path forward there. So yeah, we'll end that there. Streams, of course, at UCO2 on Twitch. Go on there and follow and go and follow the streams there, and then definitely let people know if I'm streaming, which I don't know yet if I will for Darlington this week. Kind of suck at Darlington, but we'll see. Might be fun there. But of course, Twitter at JP Huffine on there. Go like and follow my tweets and stuff like that, and then follow me, of course, and then of course the Gripster podcast on YouTube, which we have everything up there up to this point. Last one with Joe Pissarro a couple weeks ago, so go in there and see our takes on that debacle at Richmond, which now is behind us, but now kind of the same situation with Harrison Burton there going out and getting the win at Daytona. So that's definitely there, and of course we'll have this one up later in the week and everything. So yeah, glad to be back, of course. Glad to be able to see the Xfinity race and the Cups race this past weekend, of course, and then scoring autographs. Got Brandon Jones autograph as well in my hat, so I don't think I'm ever going to wear that hat anymore, which guess I'm SLL right now, NASCAR hats right now, because I have another JR Motorsports hat, but it's older, so I might have to grab a new one, which no problem. But that was a bit of an impulse decision by me to grab my hat because it had JR Motorsports on it. I was going to use my Chevrolet racing one, but then I was like, well, drivers are more inclined to autograph if it's like their brand or their company, so I wouldn't just use my hat. So did that, but can't complain. I mean, getting drivers' autographs though, so there. But got Kyle Busch's autograph, which maybe that was bad luck because Kyle Busch finished second and he didn't win the race. And Ross Chastain's autograph as well. There at the Chevy display at Daytona. So yeah, that was pretty good. Of course, being able to score drivers' autographs pretty good, and of course you can see me if you go on Chase Briscoe's Instagram story, which may not be up anymore, but you can go there and you can see me standing up right behind the front row of people on the stage there at the NASCAR Experience at Daytona. So you can go there and look at that and see my mug on there. So that's it. That's it for me this week. Of course, as always, glad to be able to bring the heat every week.
Absolutely. We always have fun doing this, and wouldn't do it with anyone else. And I saw that, I'm like, I know that guy. So then I went and sent it to you. Because you showed the shot from forwards, and then we got the flip side, and I'm like, there you go. I know that guy. Or whatever in Tim Kirchin's voice. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. Find us at GripStripPod on Twitter as well. PhilipGMatthew.com. You can find the shows. Podbean is where our host site, and obviously follow our YouTube page where Josh goes and curates all that. And yeah, we will be back next week with episode 235, recapping everything that happened at Darlington, the Milwaukee Mile, and Monza, and much, much more. Everything else going on. And an NFL preview. We'll make our NFL picks next week. Get to recap some of the fantasy football stuff, since I got screwed out of one draft yesterday, but I'll be drafting one next week or prior to our show. So we'll talk all about that and make our picks for who's going to go to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. And can Kermit the Frog actually be knocked off and do us all a favor? It'll see what we think. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to Grip Strip Podcast, and we'll see you next time.